I wonder if there's anything wrong with the following. In the summer, I'm planning to go to Scotland. Next year, I'd love to purchase a new car. In July, I'd like to change my job. Or what about in a couple of weeks' time, I'd love to see the grandkids. Now you probably think of those sentences and think, well, there's nothing wrong with those sentences. They're actually good sentences. It's right to make plans. It's good to make plans for your summer holidays. It's good to make plans for future purposes. It's good to make plans for seeing your grandkids. And it's good to plan about taking a different job. Have a listen to what James says in chapter 4, verses 13 to 17. I'll just read it. Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year here, carry on business and make money. Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it's the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast and brag. All such boasting is evil. Anyone then who knows the good he ought to do and doesn't do it, sins. So James's words are quite brutal and harsh, and in some respects he's saying that if we make plans without submitting to God's sovereignty, we are boasting and evil. In other words, it's arrogant and proud that we make plans without consulting God. Now this might seem a little bit harsh to be called arrogant for saying that you want to see your grandchildren in a couple of weeks' time. You might think it sounds a little bit OTT for being called evil for wanting to take a holiday in the summer. But what James is trying to do, he's trying to give us a reality check. And the reality check comes in verse 14. He basically says, how can you make plans for the future if you don't even know you'll have a tomorrow? Our lives are so fragile and temporary. They're like a mist in comparison to the rest of eternity. We don't have control over anything. Even the breath that we breathe is given to us by God. We're totally dependent on God for life, for everything. So to make plans without God is like my 4-year-old son declaring that on June the 15th he wants to go and climb Snowdon. Now he'll only climb Snowdon if mum and dad are free that day, and if mum and dad are willing and able to take him up Snowdon. You see, without his mum and dad, my 4-year-old plans just simply won't happen. He can plan, he can talk about it as much as he likes, but it's not going to make a difference if his plans are not our plans. So we can make plans this week, this month, this year, but if they're not God's plans, that they're not going to happen. No matter how determined we are, no matter how well we plan and research something, if God has other ideas, then that's what we're going to do. God is sovereign over all things, not just the things that we want him to be sovereign over. And sometimes when we come to our prayers, it sounds as if we want God to affirm our plans rather than submitting to his sovereignty over all things. James helpfully says, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. See, it's one thing to say that God is sovereign. It's another to submit to his sovereignty, especially as his plans may differ from our own. However, we can submit to God's sovereign plans because of the cross and resurrection. These two events remind us that God is loving, that he is for us and that he wants what is best for our lives all the time. God is eternal. He knows the beginning from the end. Nothing takes him by surprise. So our confidence to pray, if it is your will, is grounded in the character of God and his care for us. So let our plans and prayers be submitted to our good and sovereign God. God bless.